Bring that dead man, walking forward. Billionaire Bradford Kane barked, his voice slicing through the cold death row hallway. And try to keep his mutt's name out of my ears. I'm sick of hearing about that stupid dog. Marcus Cole lifted his head slowly, chains clinking around his wrists. The hallway smelled of bleach, metal, and the kind of silence that comes before a storm. Bradford leaned in, smirking like he owned the air Marcus breathed. You hear me, boy? The billionaire whispered harshly. You're hours away from execution, and your last request is to see that stray you call a dog? Pathetic. Even your dog had better sense than to stay loyal to a criminal. Shadow. Marcus could almost feel the dog's heartbeat under his palm. That single memory tightened his jaw. Bradford tapped the bars with one manicured finger. After tonight, your dog will be free. You won't. Maybe I should adopt him. Teach him how to serve a real master. Something sharp cracked behind Marcus's eyes, but he kept his voice low, steady, dangerous. You're the one who should be in this cell. Shadow saw everything you did. Bradford's face stiffened for a fraction of a second, a micro-flinch only a guilty man makes. Then he laughed, too loud, too forced. No one listens to a dog, Marcus. And after tonight, no one will listen to you. The guard stepped between them. Kane, you're done here. The billionaire straightened his suit, shot Marcus a grin dripping with arrogance, and strutted out like a man who believed the world belonged to him. But the second Bradford disappeared around the corner, Marcus's shoulders sagged, not from fear, but from a grief that hollowed the chest. He sat down on the cold metal bench and whispered to himself, My last wish is to see my dog. The prison chaplain heard him. Chaplain Rivera, the only man here who believed Marcus wasn't the monster the world painted him as, stepped into the cell doorway. Marcus, he said gently, they'll consider your request. I'll push it through. Thank you, Marcus muttered. Shadow is all I have left. Rivera nodded, but then his eyes darkened. And Marcus, I think Shadow is the only one who knows the truth of what happened that night. Marcus swallowed hard. Finally, someone said it out loud. Because Shadow wasn't just a pet. He was a witness. Hours passed. Marcus sat alone in the small concrete visiting room. No chains on his ankles this time, only on his wrists. A two-way mirror stared back at him, hiding the officers watching behind it. The door buzzed, opened, and then the sound of paws. Fast, desperate, claws scrambling on tile. Shadow. Marcus breathed. The black and brown shepherd mix burst into the room with a cry. Not a bark, not a whine. Something deeper, something almost human. He leaped into Marcus's lap, covering his face with frantic licks, whimpering and shaking. Marcus broke completely. Tears streamed down his cheeks, dropping on his Shadow's fur. Hey boy, he whispered. I'm right here. I'm right here. The chaplain watched, eyes damp. But the dog didn't just want affection. He kept nudging Marcus's hand, pulling, whining sharply, turning toward the door, then back to Marcus. Shadow, what is it? Marcus murmured. The dog growled low, urgent. Then he ran to the door, scratched at it violently. Turned back, barking now. The guard stiffened. One muttered, What's wrong with that dog? Shadow wasn't panicked. He was alert, agitated, trying to say something. Marcus frowned. Shadow, what did you see? The dog ran back, nudged Marcus again, this time pushing something small against his hand. Marcus looked down. A keychain. Old, rusty, with one engraved letter. K. His blood ran cold. Bradford Kane, the billionaire. How did you get this? Marcus whispered. Shadow whined. And then the dog did something that froze the entire room. He ran to the corner, sat, and began mimicking, perfectly, the motions of a man picking up something from the ground, then hiding it behind a trash bin. A guard stepped forward. Is he reenacting something? Marcus's heart pounded. Yes. He's showing us what happened the night of the fire. Shadow saw the real arsonist. The room fell silent. And then the chaplain leaned closer to Marcus and whispered the words that made Marcus's breath stop. Marcus, this dog might be enough to reopen your case. The guard beside him swallowed hard. The warden needs to see this. But then, a loud buzz. A red warning light flashed above the door. The intercom crackled. Warden request canceled. Return the inmate to his cell immediately. The chaplain looked confused. That's not protocol, the guard whispered. That order came straight from the governor's office. The governor, Bradford Kane's golfing partner. Marcus's pulse spiked. Shadow's fur rose. He growled toward the two-way mirror, teeth bared. Someone was watching, interfering, panicking. Marcus realized the truth. They didn't want Shadow to speak. The dog had become a threat. And as the guard stepped in to seize Marcus, Shadow lunged protectively, barking with a fury that shook the walls. Because Shadow knew something. Something explosive. Something dangerous. And someone else knew that the dog was about to expose them. The moment they reached for Shadow, everything changed. Everything. Shadow's growl echoed through the visiting room like thunder. The dog's entire body stiffened, hackles raised, eyes locked on the two-way mirror. Marcus felt the vibration through the chain on his wrists. Shadow was no longer just alert. He was warning them. The senior guard, Holt, stepped forward with a scowl. Get that animal under control. This is a prison, not a petting zoo. Marcus leaned protectively over Shadow. Don't touch him. He's trying to show you something. Yeah, sure, Holt snapped. A dog is now a key witness. Are you listening to yourself? But the younger guard, Thompson, hesitated. He wasn't acting like this 5 minutes ago. Something changed. Shadow suddenly jerked forward and scratched hard at the floor near Marcus's chair. Thompson bent down, swept his flashlight across the tiles, and stopped. A tiny piece of torn fabric. Black. Expensive. A corner of a sleeve. This isn't prison issue, Thompson murmured. Bag it, Marcus said. It's probably from the same man Shadow saw that night. Holt's voice cracked like a whip. No, leave it. He looked up sharply at the mirror, as if waiting for approval. None came. Only silence. The chaplain stepped forward. Holt, protocol requires all unusual evidence on a death row inmate to be logged. Protocol can kiss, Holt began, but he froze when Shadow stood between them and Marcus, body low, teeth bare. No one dare move. Then, without warning, the steel door buzzed and a new voice rang out. Everyone step away from the inmate. This session is over. Assistant Warden Granger stormed inside, red-faced, sweating, hands trembling slightly. Shadow barked at him instantly. Not a random bark. Recognition. Marcus's heartbeat spiked. Shadow only barked like that when he remembered a scent or a person from that night. Granger's eyes flicked to the rusty keychain still in Marcus's hand, then to the scrap of expensive fabric on the floor, then to the mirror. He was terrified. Take the dog, Granger ordered. Isolate him. Now. Marcus jerked to his feet. You're not taking Shadow anywhere. Two guards grabbed him, pushing him back. Chains rattled. Shadow lunged, snapping at their sleeves, refusing to leave Marcus's side. The chaplain raised his voice. Assistant Warden, this is irregular. Why isolate the dog? Granger snapped. Because the governor has ordered no more delays. That word hit like a bullet to the chest. Governor. Bradford Kane's best friend. Marcus heard Bradford's earlier words echo in his mind. After tonight, your dog will be free. You won't. Shadow barked furiously as the guards wrestled him away. The dog clawed the floor, crying out, desperate to stay with Marcus. Shadow, Marcus shouted. The dog's howl bounced off the walls. The chaplain stepped in front of the guards. Stop. Marcus has a legal right to his final wish. Granger's face twisted. Not anymore. Thompson stepped forward. Sir, that's illegal. Granger turned slowly, eyes dark, cold, full of threat. Are you refusing a direct order, officer? Thompson hesitated, just one breath, then squared his shoulders. Yes, sir, I am. Shadow immediately came to stand beside Thompson, as if he had chosen his side. The room shifted. Lines were drawn. Granger stepped backward, voice shaking with anger. This is bigger than all of you. That dog leaves this room now. But before he could finish, a sharp metallic click echoed from the hallway. Someone had unlocked a door they weren't supposed to. Everyone froze. Then the lights flickered. A second click. A heavy door creaked open in the distance. Thompson whispered. That came from the evidence vault. Marcus's blood turned to ice. Shadow led us here for a reason, he said. They're trying to destroy the real evidence. Granger's face went pale. too pale, because he knew exactly what evidence Marcus was talking about. Shadow suddenly tore away from the guards and sprinted toward the hallway, barking with a desperate urgency Marcus had never heard before. Thompson ran after him. The chaplain followed next. Marcus, still chained, shouted through the chaos. Shadow knows where to go. Follow him. Granger yelled into his radio, not out of authority, but panic. Shut the evidence vault. Now, now. But it was too late. Shadow had already reached the end of the corridor, and when Thompson turned the corner, his flashlight landed on something that made his breath stop dead in his throat. A single glove, soaked in gasoline, with Bradford Kane's monogram stitched into the wrist, lying exactly where Shadow sat, staring at it like he had been waiting for them to arrive. And behind Thompson, a shadow moved quietly, preparing to strike. Thompson's flashlight trembled in his hand as the beam locked onto the glove lying on the cold concrete. Gasoline's smell still clung to it, even after months in a vault. Shadow sat beside it, chest puffed, ears sharp, tail stiff, staring like he was guarding the truth. "This," Thompson whispered, swallowing. "This belongs to Bradford Kane." The chaplain knelt beside him. "Are you sure?" "The stitching, the monogram, everything. This is the glove from the arson case, the one the police claimed they never found." Shadow nudged the glove forward with his nose, then looked up at them, eyes burning with something beyond instinct. He remembered. He had seen this glove before, on the night the building burned and Marcus was framed. Suddenly, a metal clang exploded behind them. Thompson spun around. "Who's there?" Only silence. Just the long, empty corridor stretching into darkness. Then Shadow growled. A deep warning growl, low enough to vibrate through the floor. He wasn't guessing. Someone was here. The chaplain whispered, "We need to get this glove to the warden right." Before he finished, a figure lunged from the shadows, swinging a metal baton. Shadow jumped first. He leaped with a furious snarl, tackling the attacker's arm and knocking the baton across the floor. Thompson rushed in, grabbing the man and slamming him against the wall. The flashlight beam hit the man's face. Assistant Warden Granger. Sweat drenched his forehead, and his eyes darted wildly, like a cornered animal. "You weren't supposed to find that glove," Granger spat. "It was supposed to be destroyed." Thompson tightened his grip. "You were destroying evidence." "What?" Granger laughed, a cracking, broken sound. "You idiots think this is about justice? Bradford Kane owns this entire state, including your jobs, your pensions, your future." Shadow barked violently at him, teeth bared. Granger sneered down at the dog. "And this mutt, this stupid, useless mutt, ruined everything." Thompson shoved him harder against the wall. "Say one more word about that dog." Granger's smile twisted. "You think you're saving him? You're all dead. The governor signed the order already. Execution time moved up." The chaplain froze. "Moved up? To when?" Granger whispered with a sick grin. 30 minutes. Thompson's heart dropped. "What? That's illegal." "The order is final," Granger snapped. "Marcus Cole dies tonight, and nobody will believe anything that comes from a dog." Shadow growled, stepping closer, muscles tense, 1 second away from attacking. But then, a loud alarm blared through the hallway. Red lights began flashing. A voice echoed through the speakers. "All units. Death row inmate Marcus Cole has escaped custody. Lockdown initiated." The chaplain gasped. "Escaped? No, he hasn't. He's still in the visiting room." Granger smirked again. "No, he won't be there now." Thompson grabbed him by the collar. "What did you do?" Granger whispered slowly, savoring each word. "I made him disappear." Shadow let out a chilling bark and sprinted back down the hall, the same direction they came from. Thompson shouted, "Shadow, stop!" But the dog didn't stop, didn't hesitate, didn't look back. He ran like his heartbeat knew the truth already. Something had just happened to Marcus. Thompson and the chaplain chased him, their footsteps pounding through the red-lit corridor. "Marcus!" Thompson yelled. "Marcus, answer us!" They burst into the visiting room. The chair was overturned. Marcus was gone. Only one thing remained on the floor. A chain snapped clean in half. The chaplain whispered, He didn't break that. Someone cut it. Shadow stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the broken chain. Then he let out a sound no one had ever heard from him before. A hollow, trembling howl that shook the room. Thompson whispered, voice cracking. They took him. They're going to execute him early, secretly. Shadow turned, eyes burning with a terrifying determination. He sprinted toward the execution chamber. Thompson ran after him. The chaplain followed. And as they rounded the next corner, Shadow stopped dead in his tracks, growling at the sight ahead. 2 guards were wheeling Marcus toward the lethal injection room. His wrists were bound. His head was down. He looked unconscious. And standing beside the glass window, smiling, Bradford Kane. Shadow's growl deepened, echoing like thunder, because he understood one thing with absolute clarity. He was out of time. Shadow's claws screeched across the cold prison floor as he lunged forward, desperate to reach Marcus. Thompson grabbed the dog's collar just in time, barely stopping him from sprinting straight into the armed guards escorting the stretcher. Bradford Kane turned slowly at the sound of Shadow's snarling, and when his eyes landed on the dog, his smirk twisted into something darker. Not fear, not anger. Recognition. Still causing trouble, Mutt? Bradford said, you should have burned with the building that night. Thompson's fist clenched. The chaplain gasped. Shadow went wild, barking with a fury that shook the corridor. Marcus's eyelids fluttered. Shadow, he whispered weakly. His voice was barely a breath, but the dog heard it. Shadow ripped free from Thompson's grip and launched himself forward with the strength of something beyond instinct, something like love. A guard stepped forward to block him. Shadow dodged left. He slid across the floor. He leaped straight for Marcus. But a baton cracked loudly as Holt, the senior guard, swung downward to strike the dog. Don't you touch him, Marcus shouted, suddenly wide awake. He rolled off the stretcher, hitting the ground with a thud. Shadow reached him instantly, planting himself between Marcus and Holt. Marcus pulled himself up, dizzy but furious. What did you do to me? He demanded. Bradford shrugged casually. Just a sedative. You didn't need to be conscious for your farewell show. Thompson pushed past 2 guards. This execution is illegal. There's new evidence. We found Kane's glove in the vault. Everything froze. The chaplain added sharply, and the dog reenacted the crime. Shadow saw the real arsonist. A flicker of fear crossed Bradford's face, one he tried to hide, but Shadow caught it. He growled deep, his gaze locked on the billionaire. Bradford stepped back instinctively. Dogs can't testify. But physical evidence can, Thompson snapped, holding up a sealed evidence bag with a gasoline-soaked glove inside. Holt's voice trembled. Where did you get that? Thompson glared at him. The real vault. The one Granger tried to hide. Bradford's jaw tightened. Give me that, he ordered, reaching for the bag. That's my property. Thompson pulled it away. No, this belongs to the state. And it proves Marcus didn't start that fire. Someone else did. Shadow barked loudly, circling Bradford like a predator. Every eye turned to the billionaire. Where were you the night of the fire? The chaplain asked quietly. Bradford straightened his tie. I don't answer to peasants. Then answer to me, Thompson said, stepping closer. Your glove was found inside the locked evidence vault. Only someone with high-level clearance could have placed it there. Bradford smirked. Or maybe that animal dragged it in from the yard. Ever think of that? Shadow snarled and lunged, stopping inches from Bradford's leg. But instead of biting, Shadow did something strange. He pressed his nose against Bradford's designer suit and growled at the exact same scent on the glove. Thompson's voice dropped to a whisper. The dog recognizes your smell. Bradford stepped back. Get that mutt away from me. But Shadow kept advancing, step by step, forcing Bradford to retreat down the hallway. Thompson turned to Holt. This is enough evidence to halt the execution. Holt hesitated. Sweat formed on his forehead. I need authorization. The governor isn't responding, the chaplain warned. His phone went dead the moment we mentioned the glove. He's part of this. Bradford pointed sharply at Marcus. Finish the execution. Now. No one moves, Thompson said, pulling his service weapon from its holster. The entire hallway erupted into gasps. You're pulling a gun on your own? Holt stammered. I'm protecting an innocent man, Thompson said. Stand down. Shadow barked in agreement, staying beside Marcus like a soldier guarding his general. Then, a chilling voice echoed from behind the glass of the execution chamber. That won't be necessary. Everyone turned. A tall figure stepped forward from the shadows inside the chamber. Hat low, coat wrapped tight, face barely visible. The door swung open slowly. Bootsteps echoed out. Thompson raised his weapon. Identify yourself. The stranger removed his hat, revealing the one person none of them expected. The governor, Governor Landon Pierce, Bradford's closest friend, the man who ordered Marcus's death. But his expression was wrong. Shaken, ashamed, almost haunted. Bradford's eyes widened. What are you doing here? You weren't supposed to. The governor raised a hand. Bradford, we need to talk. Bradford froze. The chaplain whispered, he knows. Shadow growled deeper than before, sensing weakness. Governor Pierce looked straight at Marcus, then at the glove, then at Shadow. Finally, he spoke, softly, painfully. Marcus Cole, I know who really started that fire. Bradford's face drained of color. Thompson stepped forward. Who was it, Governor? The governor swallowed hard. It was... A shotgun blast ripped through the hallway, echoing like thunder. Everyone dove for cover. Shadow barked furiously. The governor clutched his shoulder, blood pouring through his fingers. And Bradford Kane was gone, disappeared into the smoke. Shadow leaped through the haze, chasing Bradford with a fury that promised only one thing: justice. Shadow burst through the smoke as alarms wailed overhead, sprinting after Bradford Kane with the relentless drive of a creature who understood exactly what justice meant. Thompson chased behind him, gun raised, coughing from the fog left by the shotgun blast. The governor groaned, clutching his shoulder as the chaplain applied pressure. Stay with me, Governor, the chaplain urged. We need your testimony. But Governor Pierce shook his head weakly. No, you need to stop Bradford. He'll kill anyone who gets in his way. Marcus tried to stand, but the drugs still swirled through his blood. Thompson hurried back, grabbed Marcus by the arm, and helped him up. Can you walk? Thompson asked. Marcus nodded slowly. I'll crawl if I have to. Shadow needs me. Down the hallway, Shadow's furious barking ricocheted through the concrete like gunshots. The group moved quickly, following the sound. Bradford slammed through a metal side door and stumbled into the prison maintenance yard, gasping for breath. His luxurious suit was smeared with dust and blood, and his once perfect hair clung to his sweating forehead. He turned back toward the door. That dog is going to ruin everything, he hissed. Shadow exploded through the doorway with a growl so fierce it forced Bradford backward several steps. The billionaire snatched a wrench off a nearby utility cart, swinging it wildly. Get back, he roared. But Shadow wasn't afraid. He circled Bradford, teeth bared, waiting for the right moment. Bradford swung. Shadow dodged left. Swung again. Shadow ducked under. The dog was calculating, strategizing, remembering. This wasn't just instinct. This was the night of the fire repeating itself. Bradford shouted into the dark yard. It was supposed to be a clean job. No witnesses, especially not a dog. The truth slipped out in panic, and Thompson heard every word as he stepped into the yard with Marcus leaning on him. So you did start the fire, Thompson said coldly. Bradford spun around, wrench still raised. It wasn't supposed to kill anyone, just wipe out the debt records before the audit. But your little hero over there, he pointed at Marcus, walked in at the wrong time. Marcus's voice was hoarse. So you framed me. Bradford's laughter cracked like glass. You were perfect. A black mechanic with no fancy lawyers and a dog nobody cared about. The media ate it up. Shadow barked. A deep, furious sound that shook the air. Shut up. Bradford snapped, throwing the wrench at the dog. Shadow leaped aside. The wrench clanged across the yard. Now Bradford had nothing left. He backed up slowly, breathing unevenly. You can't stop this. You think I'll believe a dog and a death row inmate over me? Marcus stepped forward, fire in his voice. You just confessed. To nobody's, Bradford spat. Thompson raised his gun. That's enough. "Bradford Kane, you're under arrest." But Bradford screamed, "I'm not going to prison," and tore off, running toward the far fence. Shadow sprinted after him instantly. "Shadow, I know," Marcus yelled, but the dog was already gone, gliding across the yard like a black streak of vengeance. Bradford reached the fence, grabbed a maintenance ladder, and scrambled upward. Shadow jumped, biting at Bradford's ankle. Bradford kicked hard, sending Shadow tumbling back onto the concrete. "Shadow!" Marcus shouted, breaking free from Thompson and stumbling forward. Shadow struck the ground with a painful thud, but he did not stay down. He staggered to his feet, limping, growling through the pain. And then he looked up. He looked at Marcus, and something changed in Shadow's eyes. He wasn't just chasing Bradford anymore. He was remembering something from the night of the fire. Shadow limped across the yard to a small ventilation shed and began scratching wildly at the metal panel. Thompson frowned. "What's he doing?" Marcus whispered, "He's showing us something." Shadow clawed harder, barking sharply, almost screaming. Thompson rushed forward, yanked the panel open, and froze. Inside the vent sat a small metal box. A scorched metal box, with the logo of Kane Industries burned into the lid. Thompson pulled it out carefully. Inside were a flash drive, burned documents, and a second pair of gloves soaked in gasoline. The chaplain breathed. "This is the evidence vault originally reported missing." Shadow had found the original hiding place, the place Bradford used months ago. Marcus felt a chill crawl over him. That's why Shadow survived the fire. He was hiding near this vent. Thompson held up the flash drive. This could expose every lie. Marcus looked at Shadow, limping, panting, but still standing strong. "You remembered everything," Marcus whispered, placing a hand on the dog's head. "You knew where to take us." Thompson said, "Bradford Kane is finished." Marcus shook his head. "Not yet." Thompson frowned. "What do you mean?" Marcus stared toward the fence where Bradford had fled. "He's not running away." His eyes narrowed. "He's running towards something." Right then, the prison floodlights flickered on a distant shape beyond the fence. Not a person, a vehicle, a black armored SUV with a governor's crest covered in tape. The engine roared to life. Bradford climbed into the passenger seat. Someone else was driving. Someone worse. And Shadow's growl cracked the air like lightning when he recognized the driver's face through the windshield. A man Shadow thought was dead. The floodlights illuminated the armored SUV like a monster awakening in the dark. Its engine rumbled, low and predatory. Thompson raised his weapon, narrowing his eyes. "Who's driving that car?" Thompson muttered. Shadow growled so deeply it rattled the metal shed behind them. Marcus squinted through the glare of the headlights and froze. No, that's impossible." The chaplain whispered. "Marcus, who is that?" The driver stepped out slowly, head tilted down, wearing a prison guard's jacket, the same jacket worn the night the fire happened. As the headlights blinked, the face finally became visible. A face Marcus had seen burned, crushed, lifeless. Deputy Warden Collins, pronounced dead the night of the fire, buried with full state honors. Shadow barked with a sound that carried pure disbelief. He remembered that man. Collins smirked, leaning against the SUV, casually like a ghost with unfinished business. "Surprised?" he said coldly. "You should be. Bradford paid good money to fake my death." Thompson stepped forward, gun raised. "Collins, you're dead. We attended your funeral." Collins shrugged. A closed casket and a big bribe can fool anyone. Marcus felt a cold chill crawl up his spine. You were at the building the night it burned." Collins winked. "Of course. Bradford couldn't dirty his own hands. And you walked in right as we were clearing out." Shadow lunged forward, but his injured paw forced him to stumble. Marcus caught him, holding him tightly. Collins laughed. "Oh, look at that. The hero mutt survived. Shame I didn't finish the job." Shadow snarled, shaking with fury, pulling against Marcus's grip. Bradford climbed into the SUV. "We're done here, Collins. Let's go." "Not yet," Collins said. "We still have something to take care of." His eyes locked on Marcus, then on Shadow. Marcus whispered, "He's going to run us over." Thompson shouted, "Everyone back." Collins slid into the driver's seat. The engine roared. Headlights pointed directly at Marcus and Shadow. "Run!" Thompson yelled. Marcus grabbed Shadow and pulled him back, but his drug-damaged legs buckled. He stumbled, nearly collapsing. Shadow refused to leave him. The SUV peeled forward, tires screaming, burning rubber against concrete. "Move!" Thompson shouted, firing a warning shot. The SUV didn't slow. Marcus clenched his teeth and shielded Shadow with his own body. The chaplain yelled, "Thompson, do something!" Thompson fired again, this time at the windshield. Glass spiderwebbed. Collins jerked, losing control for one critical second. The SUV swerved sharply, crashed through a row of metal carts, and skidded sideways across the yard. Smoke billowed. Metal screeched. The SUV slammed into a concrete barrier. Bradford Kane crawled out of the passenger window, bleeding from the forehead. "You idiot!" Bradford shouted at Collins. "You were supposed to kill him clean." But Collins was already climbing out, furious. "Shut up. I'll finish this myself." Thompson reloaded. "Collins, don't you take another step." Collins smirked. "Go ahead. Shoot me. But you won't get the chance." He pulled a device from his pocket, small, black, blinking red. Marcus recognized it instantly. A remote detonator. Thompson's eyes widened. "No, don't tell me." Collins grinned. "That fire months ago? It wasn't the only insurance policy. Bradford's been hiding something big under this prison." Bradford snapped. "Collins, shut your mouth." Collins ignored him. "I planted charges in the boiler room tonight. If Marcus didn't die from the execution, he was going to die in the explosion. That way, Bradford still walks free." Shadow barked furiously, his voice thick with rage. Thompson raised the gun. "Drop the detonator." Collins smirked. He lifted his thumb. Shadow launched himself. Despite his injury, despite the pain, despite everything, the dog flew through the air like a bolt of lightning. Collins stumbled back, startled. Shadow knocked the detonator from his hand. It skidded across the concrete. "Get the detonator!" Thompson shouted. Bradford dove toward it. The chaplain dove toward it. Marcus tried to run toward it. Shadow sprinted toward it. The blinking red light pulsed faster. 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 Bradford grabbed it first. He stood up slowly, bleeding, panting, smiling. "You lose," Bradford whispered. He raised his thumb. Shadow barked and lunged. Thompson screamed. Marcus shouted, "No!" And Bradford Kane pressed the detonator. A distant boom shook the ground. The prison lights flickered. Dust rained from the ceiling. And Collins whispered, "You're already too late." The shockwave rolled through the yard as everyone realized the unthinkable. The prison was about to collapse. The shockwave rippled through the prison grounds, sending dust and alarms into the night sky. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Shadow staggered, but didn't fall. He stood in front of Marcus, shielding him with his bruised, trembling body. Thompson yelled, "The boiler room is going to go. We have minutes." Bradford stumbled back, panting, blood dripping down his forehead. "It's over, Marcus. This whole place is coming down with you inside it." Collins grinned, wiping soot from his face. "Justice is dead tonight." Shadow growled, a deep, vibrating sound that didn't belong to a dog. It belonged to something ancient, something loyal, something done with running. Marcus pushed himself up, leaning on Shadow. "No, justice lives here. Tonight. With us." Bradford scoffed. "What are you going to do? Talk the building into not exploding?" Thompson's voice cut through the chaos. "The evidence. The flash drive. The documents. Marcus, if we get them out before the blast, the whole state will know the truth." Shadow barked, as if to say, "Then let's move. Now." The prison's emergency sirens screamed overhead. Smoke billowed from the east wing. The explosion had triggered a chain reaction. Cracks formed along the concrete walls. The ground vibrated. The chaplain grabbed Marcus. "We have to go. Now." But Collins lunged forward wide-eyed. "None of you are leaving." Thompson raised his gun. Bradford grabbed a metal pipe. And Collins tackled Thompson to the ground. Shadow broke free from Marcus's hold and charged. He slammed into Collins, biting down on his sleeve, dragging him away from Thompson. Collins fought back, punching, kicking, grabbing at Shadow's throat. Marcus shouted, "Shadow, let go!" Shadow didn't. He dug deep and held on, refusing to give Collins a single inch of advantage. Bradford saw his moment. He sprinted toward Marcus with the metal pipe raised over his head. The chaplain screamed, "Marcus!" The pipe swung. Shadow tore away from Collins and leaped. He collided with Bradford mid-swing, knocking the pipe out of his hands. It clattered across the concrete. Bradford shoved Shadow off and yanked a hidden knife from his coat. "You want justice?" he snarled. "Here it is." He lunged toward Marcus, and Shadow stepped between them. The knife plunged down. Everything froze, but instead of piercing fur, it hit metal. Shadow had grabbed the fallen evidence box and dragged it between himself and the knife. The blade bent against it. Bradford's eyes widened in disbelief. No, 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 and oh. Marcus grabbed Bradford's wrist, twisted hard, and slammed him to the ground with a strength born from pure survival. Thompson finally pushed Collins off and handcuffed him. Shadow panted hard, leaning against Marcus's leg. The chaplain yelled, "The roof is failing. We have to get out." Thompson grabbed Marcus and the evidence box. The chaplain grabbed Shadow. They ran. Behind them, Bradford screamed, "I'll kill you all. I own this state." Thompson shouted back, "Not anymore." The exit tunnel rumbled dangerously. Dust rained from the ceiling. Pipes burst. Heat surged behind them like the breath of a beast ready to swallow everything. "Run!" Marcus yelled. They sprinted through the collapsing hallway, Shadow limping but refusing to be carried. Sirens blared. Lights died. Walls cracked. As they burst out the final service door, boom! The boiler room exploded fully. A fireball surged through the corridor behind them, lighting the entire yard. The blast threw all four of them into the grass. Thompson rolled over, coughing. "Everyone, sound off." The chaplain groaned. "Dear." Marcus raised a hand. "I'm fine." Shadow whimpered, but lifted his head. Marcus pulled him close, tears burning in his eyes. "You saved me again, boy. You saved all of us." Then a loud crash echoed behind them. The prison wall collapsed inward, burying Bradford and Collins in the rubble. Justice. Real, final, unshakable justice. Minutes later, police, firefighters, and state investigators flooded the yard. Governor Pierce, bandaged, weak but alive, approached slowly. I'm so sorry," he whispered. "Bradford threatened my family. I'll let him control everything. But tonight the truth wins." He handed Marcus a signed document, an official exoneration order. "You're a free man, Marcus." Marcus stared at it, trembling. Shadow nudged his hand softly. Freedom tasted like oxygen after drowning. The chaplain smiled through his tears. Thompson clapped Marcus on the back. Reporters swarmed the gate. Cameras flashed. Marcus knelt beside Shadow. "You remembered everything. You fought for me when nobody else would." Shadow licked his cheek. "And you," Marcus whispered, voice cracking, "are the real hero of this story." The governor cleared his throat. "Marcus, what will you do now?" Marcus lifted Shadow into his arms, holding him like the most precious thing on earth. "I'm going to give my dog the life he fought so hard to give me. Together, we start again." Shadow barked, soft, warm, triumphant. And for the first time in a long time, justice felt real. Justice felt possible. Justice felt black. Powerful. Unbreakable. Marcus stood tall. Shadow stood beside him. And their new life began. What would you have done if you were Marcus? Would you trust a dog's memory to save your life? And do you believe justice would have been served without Shadow's courage? If you enjoyed this story, smash the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any cinematic story from Black Justice Tales.